after that, I'll get into the rundown. Now, soccer is first. Did you want to sort of like okay, I feel like you're done now. Do the U.S. first, and who wants to transition out of soccer into the NBA?
And I go New York, go New York, go.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
It doesn't in terms of getting organized on the rundown. It does in terms of mojo and the mood for the podcast. Welcome to S&P's Why Not Us, the podcast that's watching the world fight over a cup, the NBA fight over cap space, and the Mets fight the urge to do something stupid before the deadline. I'm your co-host, Scott Greenhut, and on the other side of the mic, looking fabulous in his Jets t-shirt, Peter Olczyk.
Hello, great to be here. By the way, speaking of the Jets, since you mentioned it, we also have a mug that I got for my birthday last year. What does that mug say?
Well, it says we almost always almost win.
Okay, so that's a bit of a tongue twister, but maybe we'll get more into that a little bit later in the show.
There's definitely no coding there. I think we get it. Who got you such a nice gift?
The family, yeah,
okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, and let's get into some of the sports stuff. In today's episode, we'll talk more about the very busy and buzzy NBA offseason, highlight some players who could be on the move before the August 3rd MLB Trade Deadline, and work our way back to the NFL with a special and likely a bit painful look-back series featuring the New York Jets' playoff history. But we begin with the craziness and high drama of the World Cup. So, the U.S. had a big game the other day against Belgium. Why don't you, let's start with that.
Yep, the USA home soil dream died in Seattle. They were never in that game against Belgium, who cleaned their clock 4-1. Just manhandled physically. I was listening to some of the commentators break it down, people who watch the game a bit more than I do. And they were saying how Belgium had guys on the bench, not even including the three guys that they held back, but just other guys on the bench that would be like A-plus players for the United States. So in reality, we all got excited because it was on our soil and we had a nice run up to it in the preliminary matches, but form held, and next time, hopefully a little better for us.
You know, watching that game and very excited, as I've said, getting into this team, getting part of this growing tent, I was absolutely into it. From the beginning, it just felt so shocking that it was kind of like JV versus varsity. I mean, that's what I thought I was watching from the get-go.
Yeah.
That first half could have been 3-0 instead of 2-1.
Yeah.
And I guess just overall, it just felt like a big missed opportunity, one game short. That's all we were. Give the U.S. a chance to play Spain. Let everybody have a few more days to just get further into the tent, get that much more excited, more Coach Poach stuff. I've enjoyed kind of, learning about him during this whole thing. So, it just felt like a missed opportunity. But, on the players' side, so great getting to know a little bit more about Alex Freeman, who's just 21, Malik Tillman, 24. He was definitely a wow on the field. And Flo Balogun, sort of putting all the politics stuff on the side. There's a lot of talent, and he's just 25 years old. So looking to learn more about him and his career as he goes on. And I would just say, I hope on the whole Christian Pulisic part of things, he's only 27. So I really hope that there's actually, more national moments in a way that that he could feel good about, because I know there's just crazy noise and
a lot of noise about whether he needed to come out or not, but that's neither here nor there in my opinion, because that wasn't going to change the outcome. So it would be great if he could stay around for the next go of it. In terms of who's still here, We've got France and Spain on one side. That's
Let's-
kind of just a classic. I just love it, just historically. I mean, you can't beat that. And then we'll see. We have the upstarts of Norway. I mean, they're not complete upstarts, but a little bit against England. And I just have so many English soccer fans surrounding me at work and watching all these games, as closely as they can, and actually not working during said games. And then Argentina and Switzerland on the other side. So, if form holds there, you would have a Final Four of France, Spain, England, Argentina. I know you can't have everybody, like Portugal's out, etc., but that's kind of as classic a Final Four as you could think about.
This is great. As we've been saying, and I've watched a good amount, France has been clearly the best team in this tournament, really playing beautiful soccer, exciting. That duo, Mbappe and Dembele, fantastic. Spain's been winning. They finally gave up a goal for the first time, but haven't looked too impressive. I did like the youngin, Lamine Yamal, who's going to be 19 on Monday. I think he said yesterday after the win, if any one team France should fear, it's us. I love that. Put that bulletin board material right out there for the U.S. fans. The England-Norway game, really excited to see that later on.
Right.
Harry Kane's been amazing. Erling Haaland is becoming a U.S. superstar in every way.
Yeah.
Put the whole Noah Syndergaard comparisons and Thor on the side, but he is extremely entertaining, and he has been able to kind of take all the pressure off of Norway, and it's worked because he's playing great, and the team, is kind of been the darlings of the tournament.
Yep.
And of course Messi, who has pretty much single-handedly kept that team alive. So we shall see later on.
We shall see. And then this all builds to the final on July 19th.
In New York.
In New York. And sorry for that. All the soccer fans globally, our apologies. That being said, we will regale you with Justin Bieber, Madonna, Shakira, and BTS on the halftime show lineup. So
how are they going to fit all that in?
Maybe it'll just be extended halftime, but that's all the rumors.
Wait, are we going all Super Bowl? We going like 25 minutes? What are we doing?
At least, yeah. I think it's going to be a whole thing. That's apparently what we can do. We can't really give you a great soccer venue, but we can give you the halftime, as long as Donald Trump doesn't take his Qatari jet and try to attend this one. Everyone should have a great time.
Okay.
And what? What? We're not. I'm just saying it would be I think a little easier for people to enjoy the game without a 6-hour body search before going in.
1,000%.
Yeah. All right. That's soccer. We're going to transition over to the NBA. I think I'll let you go first here in terms of some of the off-season movement. There has been no shortage of interesting developments. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, the East. Just all the moving chess pieces going on. It is just fun to watch. So Philly, we talked a little bit about Giannis last time, but since then, of course, now Jaylen Brown is on that team.
Yes.
What a core. Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe now in his second year, and Jaylen Brown.
How about
yes?
How little Jaylen Brown fetched for those Celtics?
Yeah, so all of this with Boston, and I think they used the word, Joe Mazzulla used the word the other day, they need a new identity. The GM, talked about having optionality. Jaylen Brown, as we've talked about on the pod, I think even a couple of months ago, was clearly one of the 5 best players in the last year, and probably the best two-way player.
Yep.
So it feels like Boston got worse. I mean, to me, that's the headline.
They got so little back from him. I think they made a play for Giannis, and obviously that was going to include Jaylen Brown. And when that didn't work out, everyone knew that Jaylen Brown wasn't going to remain a Celtic just because it just became obvious. So
on both sides, on both the player's side as well as the team's side.
Both sides, but whatever leverage there may have been was kind of undercut there. And so in the end, the Celtics, for once, the front office not looking like the savviest bunch around town. But that's a rare thing for them, and in overtime they'll be fine.
Yeah, so let's talk about Miami for a second. So you said that, okay, they're going to try to build around Giannis. What are the pieces going to look like?
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway the other day, that's a good one. 41% from threes last year for Denver. Now, of course, his dad's got his number retired on that team, but his son is now bringing that jersey down and wearing the number 10 and throwing Junior on it. So okay. I love that.
That's good.
And yeah, that team's going to continue to develop, and I think it's going to be, a real player in the top half, of the East. And then in Toronto, TBD, lots of confusion around Kawhi coming over. That trade's not done yet with the Clippers and with the investigation, with the circumvented salary cap. It probably will happen at some point. Maybe the picks will change a little bit, but we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and Donovan Mitchell signing a max extension for Cleveland. 4 years, $273 million for Donovan Mitchell. Okay.
Is that enough to bring LeBron to that team?
I mean, LeBron will take the min. Donovan Mitchell's getting 4 years at $273. By the way, Wemby taking 5 years at $252. So taking just the regular max versus the super max, perhaps trying to take a small page from Jalen Brunson's book, but also just funny to see those two contracts stacked up next to each other in almost the wrong direction between Donovan Mitchell and Wemby.
No, that's fair. That is fair.
This week marks 16 years since LeBron's The Decision, right?
Yeah, it does.
Remember that? And on ESPN, everyone was watching The Decision. Back then, that was when we all had one kind of viewing vehicle called the television. We all turn on said television. Jim Gray got the assignment. Did you think the Knicks had a shot?
No. And for some reason, I don't remember watching it, which maybe tells me that...
I definitely remember watching it and immediately knowing that the phrase "taking my talents to South Beach" wouldn't age well. I was like, oh boy. So now we're 16 years later, and is he going to do it again?
But now we're doing voice memos. Like, that seems to be the communication strategy this time.
That's how people are getting to him. He loves that. Some people are speculating that he won't say anything until the World Cup ends because he wants full attention on himself versus some of the global superstars that are on the pitch, and he's still showing up in soccer commercials. I guess kudos to LeBron for still having that hold on the public's imagination.
All right, let's get into our Knicks just for a little bit in terms of the moves. Well, first of all, some of the news, right? We find out Jalen Brunson a few days ago has left wrist surgery.
Superman. Just the legend grows. As if it needed an ounce more, but here you go.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that whole thing, however it played out, was kept quiet throughout the whole time. Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We didn't want anybody taking extra liberties there. But wow, just that he even in the last game, because that was the superstar performance in Game 5, and the wrist must have been at its peak pain during that game.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it was never a story. And not only was it not a story during the finals, as you just mentioned, and there's all kinds of strategic sense for that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a story after. Like, it wasn't the next 3 days or 4 days afterwards, he dropped the bomb. But by the way, because he could have done it then, and it's just not him.
No, I mean, it isn't. And he's such the leader in every which way possible. And I'm just thinking, as you said that, when he didn't even want to see the Larry O'Brien trophy, he wouldn't go into the room, even when they were like, oh, and he didn't want to talk about it. He said, no, next question.
Very hockey. I love that.
By the way, in terms of leadership, and another player, which we've talked a little bit about him, Jordan Clarkson.
Yep.
Love that we did the re-signing this week.
Yep.
And two things sort of ring a bell with me. I don't know if you were watching the game in early April with the whole magic healing on the sidelines with the comic relief with OG Anunoby's right wrist when he's just kind of doing the pixie dust stuff.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's Jordan Clarkson finding, just a moment to be that guy.
Yep.
And then on the other side, just this week, kind of Mike Brown reinforcing, well, this was a guy that wouldn't be afraid to do truth-telling with this team. He got it. He knew when his voice mattered and to kind of redirect things in the locker room. So no matter how many minutes he plays next year, This is a really important re-sign. And you can tell that he is just a key element in trying to see whether this team's actually got a good shot to try to go after a second title.
Yeah. We're excited to have him back. And we're excited Sham's coming back, and
Love him.
We won't talk about our center just because. Good for him. Time to make a little money, and let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Let's leave that right there and move on to the baseball diamond as we rapidly approach the trade deadline.
Yeah, so we thought for this week we would both kind of name a hitter and a pitcher in both leagues that could be on the move. So in the National League, hitter I'm going with is Luis Ariz, San Francisco. Second in batting average, which is pretty typical for him, 326 through the other day. Low strikeouts, also very typical. But as we talked about in the baseball preview earlier in the year, he wanted to go to a team where he could play second base. And his defense, the advanced metrics for his defense this year have been really good. And you can kind of do a little bit of a shout out there for the infield whisperer, which is Coach Ron Washington, which wherever he's been able to help players. So there's no question that he's been part of that. But it was just a one-year deal. San Francisco's had a really tough year, much like our Mets. So the team that I'm thinking, I'll throw out one team, Tampa Bay Rays. Clearly they've been cruising in the division, up 3 or 4 games on the Yankees. The AL, as we've talked about, is really poor this year. But there's a guy who could lengthen that lineup, flexibility to play first or second, high contact rate for the playoffs. We saw last year what that did for Toronto against really high-end pitching, especially relief pitching later in the game. So that's my hitter.
Yep.
And I'll quickly mention a pitcher.
Okay.
Freddie Peralta. I read something this week from Tom Verducci, who, as I've said in the past, just does such great analysis on baseball. And he actually was talking about that Peralta's been getting less extension down the mound, which decreases perceived velocity. So the fastball Freddie, as he's been known for years, his fastball's actually less in perceived velocity than the major league average. 94.2 versus 95. That actually matters. And of course, there's been talk about pitch selection, all these things. Still, this is a very talented pitcher. We know how much playoff teams really just feel as though that they can take a guy, do a tweak here, do a tweak there. He's got a great track record. It would not surprise me at all if they find a match. And if I was going to throw out a team, I'll go the Cubs again. This is one of those kind of, as I like to say, follow the relationships. So manager Craig Counsell, of course, there's a history there. Of course, the Mets already traded with Chicago recently. David Stearns and Jed Hoyer with David Peterson. So anyway, I'll just put that out there. We'll see. And I'm sure Freddie Peralta can become a lot closer to the guy that we thought he was going to be this year, which is really kind of 6 solid innings every time he pitches, 5 or 6 innings anyway.
Yeah, it would have been great if I wish he was playing a little better just for our return's sake. But I agree, that was going to be, when we got to the Mets, one of my points of movement. But before we get there, let's talk about American League players on the move, potentially, because who the hell knows? Tarek Skubal from the Detroit Tigers. If you can get Skubal, get Skubal. That's a quote. Okay. I've heard it. Actually, I made it up. But his prorated salary at the deadline would be $10 million out of the 32.
Yeah.
Not going to be an impediment for the likes of the Dodgers. even the Braves, anyone with a real farm system would be in the running. Even the Evil Empire would be considered a long shot.
Don't even.
But, right. So he is the pitcher of choice with a bonus play of Aroldis Chapman, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a bonus pitcher. And then from the hitting side, I selected Taylor Ward from the Angels.
Okay.
36 homers last year. This year, more of an on-base guy.
Yeah.
With less power, but would be a great leadoff bat or a nice outfield piece. There's a bunch of teams that he could go to. Diamondbacks and Braves and the Rays, I'd say, are the leading contenders. But that's my pick there.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we mentioned the Mets. We've already mentioned one player so far. So let's just maybe throw out a few other names because, the team's going to be active and kind of needs to be active at the trade deadline. So the easiest ones feel like kind of the lefty reliever rentals. So that's Brooks Raley and A.J. Minter.
Yeah.
Both have been really good. I mean, honestly, the Mets have had 5 really good relief pitchers this year. So we'll see how that shakes out. Oscar Brazaban, he is still under contract, but I guarantee that they'll be listening on him if somebody kind of, again, I'm going to say this a lot, makes an offer that the Mets really feel as though they can't refuse.
Yeah.
And I'm going to mention 2 other names, and you can react to it. Sean Manaea and Francisco Alvarez. Now, both these guys, of course, are still under contract. Sean Manaea, much like I said before in starting pitching, he's actually pitched a lot better over the last few weeks or so. There's no question that teams are going to be calling and asking about him, and it wouldn't surprise me if maybe there's an overpay or if there's just a lot of teams interested. Francisco Alvarez, I just get the feeling right now that maybe at this point he is still a very young player and is going to have hopefully a pretty long MLB career. I just think it's probably going to be on another team. He's kind of a DH, maybe a catcher twice a week. I don't think the defense at catcher is really going to get to the point that the Mets would want, and we have a really good defensive catcher already under contract.
Yeah. So
this is again going to be an if they can't refuse type of offer to me. But
yeah,
I'm sure the conversations are probably out there. Just put it out there.
Yeah, he wasn't on my high wish list to see gone, but if the offer is good, I mean, we'd have to listen given how everything's going. So I'd have to agree with that. And Manaea, let's go. I mean, all pitchers are always at a premium, and so whatever we could do towards a rebuild. In terms of the Yankees, catching is their big hole right now. Their catchers are tied for the worst WRC plus in baseball. Not good. No. And then the guy that seems like a target that I was kind of looking at anyway for other pieces of this segment, Ryan Jeffers at 164 WRC plus, just as a contrast, pending free agent. So, probably not that difficult to pry loose.
And just one little thing on Jeffers. So literally just off the IL the other day. Of course, he had the left hamate, like 3 other players did to start this year. So looks like he's healthy, which will only further kickstart those conversations over the next few weeks.
Yep. And then we'll see the other piece for the pitching. They could always use another arm. Right?
They are absolutely going to get relievers because their starters likely they will have a very good big 4 once everybody is kind of healthy by towards the end of August. But they're definitely going to increase to their overall pitching staff 100%.
Yep. All right. We're going to look a little bit at the NFL and talk about sort of the arc of what it's been like to be a Jets fan for as long as you have been. So you gave a little homework, which was great. There were some YouTube videos from 81 and 82, which is where we'll start this. And it makes sense. I think 81 was the first time the Jets had been back into the playoffs since the famous Namath game. So it does make sense to start there. Just for the listeners, I'm going to just start with basics. Just frame, how old were you in 1981?
Yeah.
And relatedly, what's your first real memory of being a Jets fan? Was it well before then, or how would you answer both of those questions?
Yeah,
I mean, one is math, and then the other you can fill in that gap.
So I'm 12 years old in that 81 season, and just a little bit of context with my Jets. So I looked at Football Reference just to look at some of the rosters again, going kind of back. So 1975 really feels like the first roster of a group of players that I was into and stuff. So the teams, 75 through 77, you know what their record was each of those 3 years?
Oh, I'll say 3 and something.
Very good. 3-11. So that was kind of the kickstart to the fandom. Then they got hot, 78 and 79, 8-8. So that's exciting. And then back to 4-12 for 1980, which kind of leads into this 81 season. So yeah, the fandom started probably 75, watching every game.
So by then, 81, you've already been in it for a while. And it's we're in the playoffs.
It's actually very similar. I was thinking about this morning, the whole late 70s to 1980 thing. It's pretty similar to the New York Mets fandom. 2 really bad teams at the same time that I was a super fan for. So that really kind of set me up. I often like to say, it builds character. And in this case, way, way too much character.
Okay. In 81, when we're talking Jets, we've got to talk about the sack exchange.
Sure.
Gastineau, Klecko, Lyons, and Salam. Which one of them was your guy and why?
We starting there?
Yeah, we're going to start there.
Yeah. So Joe Klecko is on my Rushmore for all-time Jets. And maybe we'll do sort of your Giants Rushmore at another time. But so he is absolutely at the top there. Mark Gastineau, of course, and we'll talk about some of these games where you kind of see him rallying the troops and everything, and kind of before the sack dances were a thing. He was a bit of the start of all of that with, that extracurricular behavior that might be a 15-yard penalty right now. I don't know.
Unless it's a turnover, whereupon you're allowed to put a Broadway production on.
Okay. But Joe Klecko, first of all, he played just about every position on the line. So, he was an all-pro in nose tackle. He was an all-pro on the end. We'll get into, he played hurt, and man, did he get hurt a lot. The toughest player, again, probably 1B in terms of all-time favorite Jets.
Amazing. And did you know in November of that year, the 4 of them actually went down to the stock exchange, which is where the name comes from?
Yeah, I've seen that video.
That trivia.
Yeah.
All right.
Gastineau, by the way, he kind of had that 30 for 30, last year, so they covered some of that.
Okay, great. And so then there's finally the playoffs, as we talked about, against Buffalo. Down 24-0 at Shea. That was fun to watch for me, just because I sometimes forget that they were there.
I know.
They claw all the way back to 31-27, and then Richard Todd throws a pick with a couple seconds left down on the goal line. Where were you for that game, and what do you remember about in general, but specifically that devastating end?
Yeah, so the game was December 27th, which means, and is right, I was with family upstate. The problem with something like that is that I don't really get the whole kind of private watching experience, or at least me with my sort of cohort friend of the pod, Andrew, who watched many games together.
Right.
So that's the location, which kind of leads to this this drama being not so good. By the way, the whole down 24 to 0. We're going to get into another game later because I was watching the videos and like, oh my God, this is like Pittsburgh. But that's we're going to get to that.
Right. This was the turnover on the opening kickoff. Yes.
Yeah. So I cracked up. I did not remember at all that Bruce Harper would fumble the opening kickoff, because in terms of, again, great Jets, Bruce Harper is right there. We love him. Third down back, punts and kickoffs. But that was pretty Jets, that the first play of a first playoff game
at home
at home that happened.
Yep.
Anyway, fast forwarding kind of to the end and like a really nice, comeback. Richard Todd actually threw a couple of beautiful spirals in that game.
He did.
And I will say that my guy, of course, Wesley Walker, as you well know, number one all-time favorite Jet, drew a holding penalty late, which kind of helped set up that last attempt there with 11 seconds left. Poor pass for Derek Gaffney. He was always kind of like a third wide receiver, but good player. For me personally, this is the perfect example where you leave the game, you take away from the family, and you just start reading a book. And that is how you kind of start to get through football games, especially being a Jets fan guy.
Excellent. So we can go to the following year.
Yeah.
It's a strike season.
Yeah.
And yet the Jets go on to the playoffs. They beat the Bengals.
Freeman McNeil game.
The Freeman McNeil game.
202 yards. That's a number that's in Jet lore.
And then they have to go into Oakland playing the top-seeded Raiders and rookie Marcus Allen.
Oh.
How were you feeling at that point?
I think just kind of happy. You're coming off of a game where Freeman in his second year is just running wild. This is a pretty talented team. Joe Klecko, by the way, again, ruptures his patellar tendon in the second game, rehabs the heck out of it, and somehow returns for the playoffs, because of course he does.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, we won a game. Great. Who's next? Doesn't matter. And then watching some of those highlights, which I didn't really remember that well, but Lance Mel, very nice career as a Jets, as a linebacker, probably top 3 or 4 easily. Doesn't have just one pick. He has 2 picks. And the second one actually saved Freeman, so late in that game, we go up 14-10. Richard Todd throws this dime to Wesley Walker at the 1, then we score in a short touchdown. And then shortly after, Freeman has, I'm sure he would say, a fumble that he'd like to have back, an oh my God moment.
Yeah.
But the football gods come in right away with a deflection and a Lance Mel interception and no drama. So there you go.
Yep, and that sets the stage for the Mud Bowl. In that case, who were you watching with? And what did that experience look like on your television?
Pretty sure Andrew and I were in my apartment for that one. That's January 23rd. The whole thing about the days leading up to that game, everybody knew about the weather. This wasn't a surprise. Downpours for a couple of days. In reading some of the articles the other day, the Miami would say, well, it really wasn't a team thing. The city owns the stadium, so whatever. If you're a Jet fan during that week, knowing that Miami saw what Freeman McNeil did during those playoffs, they would do anything to have that field be just a full mud track. Yes, for both teams, but we had the player that was the difference maker on a good field, 1,000%. And that's the A.J. Dewey game. I mean, that's what the game is. Richard Todd threw 5 picks, but the first one was a tip ball, so that one doesn't really count. The second one was a great play in coverage by A.J. Dewey, a really good player. But it was the third one, the killer third one. It's just 7-0 at that point, early in the fourth. Rush from the left end. It seems like it happens in slow motion whenever you see the highlight. 35-yard pick 6. Dagger every which way you could make it possible, and that's it. That's the game. So there's one of the all-time dagger Jet moments that we'll get into. Yeah,
and then from there, if you had to describe the specific flavor of Jets pain, because these were some tough games, and then we'll get to some of the other stuff later on, but just if you were to maybe early on, even looking at these 2 seasons as well as the bad ones before that, what is the one ingredient that no other fan base can identify with, that the Jet fans, it's unique to Jets fans?
Probably just that there's always going to be this sense of you're going to have some good, and you are going to embrace and love those moments when you have them. But you kind of know to be ready and to prepare yourself for the exact opposite in ways that you haven't seen that are still going to be created. And the Mud Bowl's a perfect example.
And then so you won. So that despite that heartbreak, you're in the playoffs 2 years in a row. From there, how many years did you personally keep saying this is the year before just
Never.
having more of that?
Never.
Okay, never.
You know, I mean, that was a great moment. There were a lot of good players on those two teams. It's, you know, they deserve to be close. So it's not surprising when we kind of get into the next one, where I think we have about a 4 or 5 year break before the playoffs happen again, that we get back into it. You just kind of get back to being a typical Jets fan. And honestly, when I think about, you know, my 12-year-old self with this team, I just love the passion that I had. I see it in my son who's had it from a young age. And, you know, whether you're throwing a little piece of furniture at a time that's needed when you're younger, that's great. And, you know, Andrew would tell you the same thing, you know, as the fandom, and that's all part of it. And like now, the emotions of the team, you follow it in a different way. You feel it just as much. Maybe you react a little bit differently, a little bit more mature.
Yeah.
But no regrets. The way it all happened, the highs and mostly the lows, but that's just part of this team. Maybe one day.
Excellent. So that's where we'll pick it up for part 2, because trust me, everyone, it does not get easier from here.
No.
But for now, the Jets history, part 1, 81 and 82, has gone final. We'll move to the lightning round, where we'll do a faster one today. Just looking at Wimbledon as this tournament comes to an end this weekend, actually, of the recording.
Yeah, so just on the women for a second, for anybody that didn't see the tiebreaker in the semis between Karolina Muchova and Coco Gauff, you can easily find it on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes. Wow. It ended up being 11-9. I won't try to describe it all, but I will say, since I actually saw it live, incredible highs, high-level tennis, some absolutely heartbreaking lows on both sides, and literally both players right at the end thought they kind of had it before it ended up being 11-9. So I can't recommend it enough. And Coco was so thoughtful and was able to calm down after and talk and be reflective. And this is the furthest she's gotten in Wimbledon. This is going to be a good thing for her long career.
Okay, so it's interesting. I was going to ask / comment that I thought her press conference was almost too mature in my book, in the sense of like just not expressing how frustrating it must be. She was like, most people would kill to get to the semifinals of Wimbledon and have a match point.
Well, I think she probably was saying, okay, deep breath, let me talk effectively, and then I got a bunch of weeks before the Open to
because
kind
it
of
couldn't have been
what
that
happened.
fun or easy. But
go look at the drop shot. You know, when you get to right towards the end of that tiebreak, and how she's going to be playing that point in her mind. You know, often.
Yep.
In terms of the final, by the way, which is actually going on and probably just went final as we're talking.
Yeah.
But an all Czech final. Yeah, I couldn't resist that one. Linda Noskova and Muchova, 9 and 10 seeds. Muchova was 1-0 heading into that tournament. The matchups head to head. 24 Olympics doubles teammates, and neither has won a major. And also, this is the first time since the 17 Open that 2 women from the same country were in a major final. And it looked like Noskova, had won the first set easily. I think it was up 5-3 when I took a look, but that is still going on. And just one thing on Serena. Of course, we talked about last time. I was really looking forward to kind of watching, the comeback in this tournament. The knee didn't work out, so we'll keep an eye on her knee as we creep closer to the U.S. Open and hope that she's in position to, hopefully get invited, hopefully play both singles and doubles.
Yes, a kind of quick exit for her. And the men, we get a pretty fantastic matchup tomorrow for breakfast at Wimbledon. Sinner, Zverev, almost playing to form here, going to going to play each other after Djokovic, it should be noted, and making it to the semi-frickin' finals at age 39. Sinner a little bit too much for him, but oh my God, that guy is just a machine. So just truly amazing. But tomorrow, I think tomorrow's final should be great. No matter which way it ends, we will have an American men's drought of 23 years and counting after Taylor Fritz, who made it the farthest for us, exited in the semifinals. Yeah, I mean, it feels like just a minute ago where Pete Sampras was the man, and how time flies. 23 years, my goodness.
I will say it's been fun having Andy Roddick come back and do the analysis, and he's got his own podcast, which is tennis heavy, and it just seems like he's going to be him, and getting to the whys as to how things are happening on the court. So he's really a tennis savant, and we'll see more of Andy Roddick as we head into the Open also. All right, so we got a PS. You were up this week, and I think the topic was mistakes that tourists make when they come to New York. So who's starting on this?
Yeah, I thought we're both natives.
Yeah.
We've been there for some time, so a couple things that we could potentially guide away from the mistake. Look, number one, it's not close. The first piece of advice: Times Square is not for you. Of course, if you're seeing a Broadway show, we'll allow it. But other than that, I don't even care if you got your kids with you. It is a mess. It is overcrowded. It is claustrophobic. And it is surrounded by people dressed up in superhero costumes who will pretend that they're going to take a picture with you and your kid and then hold you hostage if you do not tip them well. It's even weirder when Minnie Mouse is doing the hostage taking. So, stay away.
Can I just jump in on that one, since I have a take that's sort of similar, but just one very specific thing. Let's say you really are going to Times Square because you're seeing a show, you want to take your pictures. Here's a tip. Don't get off or get on the Times Square subway stop.
Yeah.
It is
50th.
It is annoying, it is crowded, it is stressful walking those 2 blocks. Just go one stop north on the local. There's many subway lines. You can get as close to 47th Street and use that as your entry and exit way for Times Square.
That's a good tip, and most people don't know about it. Now, it's still busy up there, but it's still on a relative basis. Yeah. That's a good one. So good job by you on that.
No scary characters on 47th or 48th Street.
My next tip is regarding Central Park, which everyone should go see, because Central Park is amazing and one of my favorite parts of New York City. The tip is, unless you have a specific reason, one reason could be the zoo, another reason could be Woolman Rink. But unless you have a specific reason like that, try to get as north as possible, because the 60s are just on a weekend so packed. 70s, fairly packed as well. 80s, you finally start getting past the meadow and then the softball fields, and things start loosening up a little bit. But then the 90s and up, you're in. It's beautiful. You've shed 85% of the people. Spend some time up there, especially if you were just going for like a picnic or something.
Yeah, so the park was my second one as well. A little bit of a more general comment, but I understand everything that you said. My thing is just build plenty of time. I recommend 2 experiences when you're in the park. So do it separately. Have a biking experience where you can kind of jump to lots of places and see different things and stop and chill. But then also have a walking experience and make those separate, because the park is doing better than ever. I do a walk around the park pretty regularly on the weekends, and I was there in April, and all of a sudden these cherry blossoms are all over the place. So no, you don't need to go to Washington, D.C. to see the cherry blossoms. But that's just a tiny example. So I would just say, take your time, don't rush, build in time for the park.
Super. Yeah, so I mean, those were my stayaways. The only thing I could think about for my third tip wasn't a tip, but it was a bit from David Letterman, who used to film at the Ed Sullivan Theater, which is kind of a little above Times Square, let's call it. A little north of there. There was a bit he did one time where he opened a window and he took out a bullhorn and he said, "Attention tourists, the city is now closed.
Love that.
Please return to your hotel rooms immediately. You will be notified upon its reopening." That's just made me laugh. So that's not so much of as a tip, but just sort of reinforcing the Times Square madness a little bit.
Whenever I hear that, I always think of Chevy Chase. "Sorry, folks, the park's closed. The moose outside should have told you," which is one of my favorite lines. One other tip, Metro North. So this is something that maybe people don't know about, but Metro North, the trains that kind of go to Westchester and Connecticut, they're really clean. You start out in Grand Central, which is wonderful to see anyway. Light hikes, pretty towns along the Hudson River. So if you're going to do a day trip, I highly recommend spending a little bit of time and doing a little Metro North research, because it's pretty easy and nice to get out of the city.
Okay, so to frame it for the theme, don't not take Metro North.
No,
because
100%.
it's out of the city. There's some great stuff there, accessible through lovely Grand Central Station, mind you. It's just absolutely beautiful. While you're there, you can talk into the corner of one of the sides of the station, and your friend can hear you all the way across the way on the other corner. Fun facts like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
right, great. Well, with that, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Until the next time, I'm Peter Olchik.
And I'm Scott Greenhut. Make sure to subscribe to S&P's Why Not Us on YouTube or your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. Until next time, Peter and I are going to put this episode
in the books.